Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Casey. Today we are studying in Unit 2 a story called The Three Chicharrons, and it is what we call a modern fairy tale. So we're going to talk about story structure and what kind of tales we can tell. So in today's lesson, we'll understand and identify different types of children's stories and why we tell them. We'll use tools to analyze modern fiction writing. We'll identify the parts of a story for better understanding, and then we'll read and understand the key parts of this modern fairy tale. So let's get started by understanding types of children's stories. So today's lesson is based on a modern fairy tale. So first, there are many types of children's stories, but there are three main types, and there are reasons why we use them. So the first one, what is a fairy tale, and what is the purpose of this type of fiction? Why do we tell these stories? Well, here's an example. An example is Cinderella. A fairy tale normally involves some sort of magic. We have fairies or wizards or magical creatures. The purpose of a fairy tale is to help children to believe something. So the reason we tell the Cinderella story is we want everyone to believe that dreams may come true. Whatever your dream is, it can come true. The second one is a folk tale. What is the purpose of this type of fiction? You study this a lot in the Vietnamese program. Here's an example. A folk tale carries culture, tradition, and history. It helps to carry those ideas from generation to generation. Every culture has its own folk tales, and here you see a picture from the story of Thum and Khanh. And the third one is a cautionary tale. So what is the purpose, do you think, of this type of fiction? Well, a cautionary tale warns children to be careful or to do what they are told to do. An example of that is here. The Little Red Riding Hood warns us not to go out in the forest alone at night. If I tell you don't do something, you will do it. But if I tell you a scary story about a wolf who attacks a young girl who goes out into the forest alone at night, you will be afraid and you won't go. That's a cautionary tale. Okay, so preparing to read, we need to understand how to analyze modern fiction. When you read a modern work of fiction, you may find that many things seem familiar. Ask yourself, how is this similar to other stories I have read or heard? Once you find a connection, compare the characters, setting, and plot of the new story to the one you know to find the difference. And we will talk about characters, setting, and plot in just 1 minute. So here is a sample from the text. Pause the video for 1 minute. Okay, and see if you can find something that's familiar that you have read before about this story. Okay, did you find a connection to something that maybe you've read before? Well, the story reminds me of the fairy tale about the three little pigs and the wolf. Interesting. We all know that story. I noticed that the chicharrons have different names. They count their money and drive cars. So it's not the same. It's a little bit different, but it does remind us of a story that we already know. So here's a question for you. We've talked in the last 3 lessons about compare and contrast. So how can we compare and contrast different stories? What tools have we learned to use? Well, we've talked about a simple list. We used a Venn diagram, and we used a chart that compares and contrasts. Here's an example for you of what we're talking about now. This is a Venn diagram, 2 simple circles. On one side, we have the 3 little pigs. On the other side, we have the 3 chicharrons, the story we will read today. What is the same? Okay, what can we compare about these two? Well, they both have 3 pigs. They both have a wolf. Do we know how they're different? Not yet, but at the end of the story, I'm going to ask you to fill in the rest of this Venn diagram. Okay, before we read, it's important to understand key vocabulary. So let's start here. The first one, advice. Advice. To give advice means to share wise words. Parents give advice to their children. Next one, Business. Business. A business is where you do work for money. Some people's place of business is in office. Next one. Cheat. Cheat. You can see here the student is cheating by writing the answers on their hand. When you cheat, you act unfairly. It is wrong to cheat on a test. Next, we have deal. Deal. A deal is an agreement. If you agree to mow your neighbor's lawn for money, you have made a deal with your neighbor. Next one, deserve. Deserve. When you deserve something, it means you have worked hard to earn it. If you study hard for a test, you deserve a good grade. Next one is fortune. Fortune. A fortune is a large amount of money or a lot of good things. The woman worked hard to earn her fortune. Okay, two more. Frustration. Frustration. You can see in the illustration that this girl is frustrated. Adjective. Okay, frustration is the noun. If you feel frustration, you feel angry that you can't do something. And the last one, property. Property. Property is what someone owns, like a house or land. People can sell their property to someone else. Okay, let's move on to our story today, The Three Chicharrons, page 114 and 115. So, here's the question for you. What kind of story is this? And what do you think will be the purpose of the story? Here's what I think. It could be a fairy tale. It could be a cautionary tale. Maybe both. We don't know until we've read this story. We can tell from the picture we have some context clues. The purpose may be a warning, or it may be a message for us to learn. Or maybe it's both. We'll find out at the end. Okay, so this story is a modern fairy tale. Okay, again, a fairy tale has some sort of magic. Okay, but this is a modern one. Okay, a fairy tale is a short made-up story that has been told over the years. Cinderella has been told for a long, long, long time, and we still tell the same story. A modern fairy tale puts a new twist on an old story. As you read, look at how the plot, setting, and characters of the story are different from a traditional fairy tale. What is modern, and what is like other stories you have read, like The Three Little Pigs? Okay, so the plot or events of a fairy tale often tell about good and evil. The setting of most fairy tales is a castle, the country, or a forest. The characters are usually simple and have one character trait, such as greedy or lazy. So we will learn about these three chicharrones, or pigs, as we read the story. Okay, here's a little bit from the text, and here's some questions for you. So before we read, we want to know, what is the plot of a story? What does that mean? What is the setting of a story? What are characters? And then what do you think is the main plot idea from this story based on this part of the text? Pause the video and answer these 4 questions. Okay, what is the plot of a story? What does that mean? Well, the plot is the flow of the story from beginning to end. What events happen to move the story forward? The setting of the story is a place, time, or situation. Okay, where does the story happen? Does it happen in the magical forest? Does it happen in a giant castle? Okay, and when does it happen? Did it happen a long, long time ago in a place far, far away? Does it happen today in modern Vietnam? And then what are characters? Do they have to be people? No. They are the people, animals, or things that drive the action in the plot. The plot is the flow of the story, but something or someone needs to make them happen. So in this story, our 3 chicharrones are the main characters. Even though they are animals, they are the characters that drive the action. Now, when you read this, what do you think is the main plot idea of the story? Well, you see highlighted in blue, I'm Diego Martinez and I'm going to make you rich. So maybe the chicharrones have to make a choice between doing something and making lots of money. Let's find out. Okay, here's page 116. So the purpose of our reading here is to find out what happens to these three brothers. So read page 116 and answer the two questions that are on your screen. Okay, now that we've read the first page and we have been introduced to our three main characters, the three chicharrons, okay, what do we already know about them? Well, we know that Pereza is lazy. Gordo wants the quickest and easiest answer to life, and Astuto is hardworking. They are all brothers, but they all are different characters, and that will play out in the story. Okay? Papa in the story is sending them away from home. He gives them a little bit of money and he sends them away. Why is he sending them away, in your opinion? Here's my opinion. He wants them to understand the world outside of their house and to make their own money. All of us need to go out and experience life and experience the world for ourselves. This is what Papa is doing in the story. Okay. Next, this is also page 116. Okay, and here's your question. So pause the video, read this part of page 116 and answer this question. Okay, the story is written with a lot of Spanish words. We don't know this story. We've only read one page. We don't speak Spanish. So can we understand by context what the father is trying to tell his three children? Can we understand a little bit about the language by the pictures, the setting, the characters, what we know about other stories? Okay, can we use that context to understand what the father is trying to tell his children? Well, here's my idea. Be careful with your money and watch out for the wolf who will try to steal it. That's what he's trying to say to his children. Next, page 117 and 118. Okay, so what I want you to do is read these two pages and compare and contrast what each brother did after he left home. How were the actions the same and how were they different? Pause the video and do that now. Okay, here's my answer. So, lazy Pereza, he bought the first land he saw. He's lazy. He saw something, he bought it. Gordo worked a little harder, but just hard enough. Not very hard. Astuto worked until he found exactly the best land that he wanted. All of them followed Papa's directions. They went out and they bought a house, okay? But they all did it in their own way because they are different characters. So they show their character traits and how they do actions in the story. Now, page 117, 118. Now we have a new character in the story. What do you think will happen? Write your answer down in your notebook and look again after we finish the story. So what's going to happen now that Dinero Martinez comes into the story and he says, I'm going to make you rich? Take a minute and write down your answer in the notebook and we will look at it after we finish the story. Ready? Okay, let's keep moving. Page 119 and 120. So, can we predict, will Dinero Martinez make Pereza rich? Well, what do we know about Pereza? Here's your question. Read page 119 and 120 about Pereza. Okay, what do you think will happen to him? write down in your notebook your ideas, and we'll check again at the end of the story about what happens to Pereza. And then write down the evidence on this page about your opinion about his future. Pause the video for 3 minutes and do that now. Okay, here we go. Next, page 121. So when we read about Gordo or Pereza, who is more foolish? Give reasons and evidence from the story to explain your opinion. Read this section of page 121 and answer the question now. Okay, here's my answer. You don't have to agree because it's an opinion, but this is my opinion. They are both foolish, but for different reasons. Pereza is just lazy and he wants easy money. That's what we know about him as a character and his character traits. Gordo likes money too much and he makes terrible mistakes because of that. Again, they both make mistakes. They both do something stupid or foolish, but they do it for different reasons. The reasons that they do it is their character, what makes them their special character. Okay, let's keep going to page 122. Now, predict again. Will Dinero also fool Astuto? What do you think? What do we know about Astuto and his character traits? Is he different from his brothers? Yes, we've already decided he's different. Okay, so will Dinero also be able to fool him? So on page 122, read this section of the text and answer this question on your screen now. So the question is, why does Astuto make a different decision than his brothers? What is important to him? Again, we've already studied the character, Astuto, and his character traits. What makes him unique or special? He listened to his papa's advice, and he understands the value of money more than his brothers. So he has understood the lesson that his father is trying to teach him. Here's page 122 and 123. So here is your question. Read this section from page 122 and 123 and answer the question on your screen now. Okay, do you think that Gordo and Pereza have really learned their lesson? Will this story have a happy ending? Write down your predictions in the notebook before we finish the story. So do it now, and then we'll look at it again at the end of the fairy tale. Here's page 124. Okay, and here is the question on the screen. Based on context clues, what do you think is the meaning of the words bellowed and sleazy, and also the Spanish phrase, no gracias? So pause the video and answer this question. Okay, what do you think? In context, can we understand the word bellowed? Bellow is to shout with a deep, loud roar of anger or frustration. Ah! So who is so angry? Well, Dinero is, because he didn't get what he wanted. Sleazy. This is an adjective to describe a corrupt person with no morals or integrity. Again, we're talking about Dinero. And then no gracias means no thank you. We can understand in the context, even though it's a different language, that this is what he's trying to say. Here's page 124 and 125. Okay, so read this page and answer the question on your screen. Okay, Dinero is caught trying to burn down the brother's house. What does he try to do with the sheriff? He tries to make a deal. But this is also called bribery or corruption. What does that mean? Well, Dinero tries to give the sheriff money or land to get away with crime. This is illegal. So what do you think will happen to dinero at the end of the story? Here's page 126 and the end. Read this last page and answer the 2 questions on your screen. Okay, how do the 3 brothers work together to trick dinero? Well, Astuto's plan was to speak loudly about their idea of going to the party so dinero would hear. He knew that dinero would do something illegal. Aha! Now, what is the message of the story? This is a fairy tale. Okay, it needs to have a message, and also it's a cautionary tale, so I think it also has a warning. Here's what I think. Listen to your papa, be patient and smart, think before you act, and be careful with your money. Okay, here's your homework. I want you to draw a Venn diagram. Here's one with 3 circles to compare and contrast the 3 main characters in the story, Pereza, Gordo, and Astuto. And then write a list of sequential events that explains the plot of the 3 chicharrons. That's all for today. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.